The Farm Girl Who Traveled Through the Book Has Great Fortune. Chapter 1, Through Books, There is a Spiritual Spree. Chapter 1, Traveling Through Books, There is a Spiritual Spring in the Space. Pain. I feel something is wrong with myself and there is no origin pain. Anwana frowned and opened her eyes, and found that she was actually in a strange room. Through the window of the room, she could see the farmland outside and a small pool that was bubbling with water. Where is this? Anwana opened the door in surprise and walked out to see clearly that the farmland was only a small area of about 2 acres, and it was deserted and there was no planting anything. And the pool actually emitted an indescribable fragrance, which was obviously not ordinary water. Is this a space with a spiritual spring? Anwana tried to chant, "Go out," in surprise. Sure enough, the scene in front of me immediately changed again. She found that in a flash, she was lying in a valuable, exquisite carving and many craftsmanship had been lost. She couldn't help but sit up in shock, and a memory came to her. After receiving the memory of the original owner Anwana and the pain of acupuncture in the head, Anwana immediately realized that she was wearing a book. She walked into a fictional ancient saying that she had just abandoned the article before going to bed. Then, is there still space and spiritual spring? Anwana was stunned. She didn't have the time to check the space with the spiritual spring, just thinking that this fictional ancient Chinese pet article is still serialized and the plot has not really begun. She abandoned the article because the original owner Anwana, who had the same name and surname as her, was not the ordinary tragic fate of cannon fodder that made her feel particularly frustrated. So she was so angry that she wrote a long review, and after attacking the author, she angrily abandoned the article. Oh my God, no one told her that there is still a risk of having an abandoned article. Without Rome and Wanner's gorgeous picture in the original owner, she was still big like a small room and continued to feel sad in the spring and autumn. She heard a woman who was sharp and harsh, almost questioning, and was an unhappy voice, "Sulan, I am still here to marry Wanner for my Roni. My family Roni had already passed the exam for Tongsheng at a young age. Even the master often praised him for his talent and a bright future. You said, why do you dislike him? Why do you always refuse to nod and agree to this marriage when I come again and again? If you tell me what dissatisfaction with Roni, can't I let him change it? It's Lu Jinhua." Just hearing this sound, with the memory of the original owner Anwana immediately knew the identity of the visitor, and at the same time recalled the plot of the original book. The original owner Anwana saved someone on the mountain but lost her body in a confused manner. Afterwards, when she went down the mountain in a daze, it was already dark. When she met the original owner, who was worried about her daughter's safety, her father took the villagers up the mountain to find her. As a result, she was seen by most of the villagers in a mess. Everyone guessed that she had met a villain on the mountain. So, under the secret push of Su Futsai, a villager who was jealous of her father's marriage to her mother, the original owner became more and more. The fact that the loss of chastity was confirmed, and the rumors slowly spread all over the countryside. At this moment, because the original owner Anwana was an only daughter, Lu Jinhua, who was rejected many times, came to the door again unwillingly and continued to ask for the original owner Anwan for her son Lu Rongyi. Son. Because Lu Jinhua came frequently, he finally saw the original owner Anwana having morning sickness 2 months later. With his reputation completely destroyed and he was pregnant, Lu Jinhua's proposal to get married finally touched the original owner Anwana's family. Who knows that it was this fake marriage proposal that pushed the original owner Anwana's family to a dead end. 3 years later, Lu Jinhua, Lu Rongyi, and Su Futsai finally found an opportunity to kill the original owner Anwana's parents. Afterwards, Lu Jinhua and Lu Rongyi and his son poured poison from the original owner Anwana. If the original owner Anwana's son had not died with him, it would inevitably arouse suspicion. The mother and son are probably even the son of the original owner Anwana, who is less than 3 years old, to be killed together. When I recalled this, the fire in Anwana's chest started to burn again. Settling in the yard. Jinhua, I have said it many times. I really have no dissatisfaction with your Rongyi. It's just that he is not suitable for my Wanner. Seeing that she had rejected it over and over again, Lu Jinhua still refused to give up. He also came to the house again and again to ask her son Lu Rongyi to marry his only daughter Anwana. Xin Sulan was also feeling angry. She didn't invite people into the room, but just stood in the yard and refused to look at her. If I hadn't thought that I was a playmate of Lu Jinhua, I wouldn't have wanted to break up. Xin Sulan really wanted to drive the person out directly, instead of continuing to explain patiently to her with anger in this way. But if you don't fit, you have to tell me what's wrong, right? I've said it all, as long as you say it, will it be better if I ask my Rongi to change it? As he continued to talk about the same thing, Lu Jinhua was also angry. In Lu Jinhua's heart, no matter how she thinks her son Lu Rongi looks good, even the princess can marry her. As a result, the An family members didn't recognize the gold and jade. She came to him in a low voice and asked An Wanner to marry him. Humph, if it weren't for the sake of making a fortune. How could An Wanner, who had lost her reputation, be worthy of her son? But it was already this time, Xin Sulan was still stubborn like her and refused to give in. Lu Jinhua was very angry, and her tone became a little heavier. Sulan, you probably don't know yet, right? The fact that your Wanner has a wild man outside has spread throughout the village. You have a wild man, your whole family has a wild man. Don't you understand what people say? Why did my mother reject you again and again? You have no idea in your heart, and you have no idea of self-knowledge. I don't know that we are just at all. Don't look down on your family's greedy face, don't look down on your snobbish baby son. Before Lu Jinhua finished speaking, Xin Sulan, who was shocked and angry because of her words, reacted. An Wanner had already rushed out of the room, and she was holding a big broom in her hand and swept over to Lu Jinhua, making her dodge in a mess and had to retreat to the gate. You're crazy, you crazy woman, do you know what hospitality is? Until he left the door, looking at An Wanner holding a big broom and refused to give up, and was still sweeping across her, Lu Jinhua had to step back several steps away before questioning. Get out, what kind of guest are you? You come to the door with shame again and again to be annoying. If someone else has changed, you will have let the dog bite you. Speaking of dogs, thinking that she really raised a dog, An Wanner couldn't help but say hello, Heihu, go and bite her. Woom wool. No mistakes, one song, one content, 1 in 6, one book, one bar, one reading. As An Wanner finished speaking, a dog with smooth fur oil suddenly rushed out and rushed forward fiercely in the direction of Lu Jinhua. Oh my god dash. Lu Jinhua didn't expect that An Wanner would let the dog bite her if she had a disagreement. She was so shocked that she ran away. Even the embroidered shoes were thrown away and they didn't even bother to pick them up. Her embarrassed look made An Wanner laugh out loud. Heihu, won't he come back yet? Hearing the laughter, Lu Jinhua didn't dare to delay running faster, and even Xin Sulan recalled the black tiger. You, when did you become so naughty? Fortunately, our family is far away from the villagers. Otherwise, if you were seen like this, wouldn't you gossip again? Seeing that the Heihu had returned, Xin Sulan looked around, and thankfully pulled An Wanner into the door, turned around and closed the door of the yard. Just say it. Whoever doesn't talk about it in front of others, and no one talks behind it. An Wanner said indifferently. She put the big broom in her hand, held Xin Sulan's arm and acted coquettishly. Mom, I hate that Lu, you are not allowed to pay attention to her again in the future. You have already swept her out today. I'm afraid that if I want to pay attention to her in the future, she doesn't want to pay attention to me. Xin Sulan thought of Lu Jinhua's embarrassing appearance that was driven away by her daughter before, and she was both funny and angry. He couldn't help but point An Wanner's forehead and cursed, you are relying on me to spoil you so much, right? Believe it or not, wait for your father to come back, will I ask him to beat you? Humph, don't scare me, so I won't be fooled. My father is reluctant to beat me up. He will only praise me for doing well. Heihu is also good. Mom, let's appreciate its meat, right? Hearing eating meat, the black tiger's eyes were glowing, and he trotted to An Wanner's side and kept wagging his tail. Xin Sulan's eyes widened in an instant, trying hard to make herself look more stern, but unfortunately she failed. An Wanner didn't look scared at all and continued to stick to her and act coquettishly. Mom, okay, just promise me, otherwise I will become a villain who has broken his trust in Heihu. What are you begging me for? The meat is not locked either. You know how to instruct me without hands or feet. End of this chapter. The Farm Girl Who Traveled Through the Book Has Great Fortune. Chapter 2, Neither Silver Bill nor Ginseng is Missy. Chapter 2, None of silver notes or ginseng can be missing. He really couldn't resist Anwaner's spoiled behavior. Xin Sulan glared at her angrily and turned around and entered the house. She simply ignored her eyes and made a clean look. Is this what it means to agree? Anwaner smiled secretly. When she was reading the book, she knew that the original parents in the book were particularly fond of the original body, but the result seemed to be more favorable than she thought. In a good mood, Anwaner greeted Heihu and went straight into the kitchen with a man and a dog. Without any effort, Anwaner found a piece of fat, fresh meat that was as big as an adult's palm from the cabinet. She was very sensible and did not throw all the meat to the black tiger, but cut it half of it. Even if it was only half, Heihu was still very excited and turned around and wanted to run away with his flesh in his mouth. Come back, why are you running? I said that I gave you the one. Are you still afraid that I will take it back? Anwaner was not careful that the black tiger was going to run away. In desperation, she grabbed its tail before pulling it. Retrieve it back. Whoom. 3 or 2 swallowed the meat in their mouths whole, and then Heihu shouted softly twice in protest, his eyes full of grievances. Okay, I was wrong. Next time, you must be careful not to pull your tail, okay? I remembered that the dog's tail could not be pulled casually, and Anwaner quickly pleased and smiled hard at it. Wang. Heihu was satisfied and stuck out his tongue and licked her palm. Huh, what a black tiger. I'll go and say to my mother, would you please accompany me to the mountain later? I haven't forgotten to wear books myself, and I even dressed up as a female supporting role with the whole family being cannon fodder. Although Lu Jinhua, who had driven away the whole family, was destroyed. But Lu Jinhua was as thick-skinned as a city wall. Anwaner guessed that she would definitely not give up her big fat piece of meat easily. Sighing, Anwaner didn't dare to delay too much, so she ran into the house to find her cheap mother Xin Sulan in this book. Go to the mountain. No. Have you forgotten that you just got lost in the mountain yesterday? When Xin Sulan heard that Anwaner wanted to go up the mountain, she immediately shook her head repeatedly. It's useless to act coquettishly. Yesterday you almost scared your father and I to death. We can't help but be scared the last time. Mom, I have a reason to have to go there again. This time I will definitely not get lost again. There are more than 300 years of ginseng and 500 taels of silver notes. If you let them get the advantage of the Su Futsai who has a grudge against their family in this life, then not to mention the original owner, even Anwaner would have vomited to death. What's the reason for having to go? You said, I'll tell you if I'll call you. I made up my mind to be cruel to Anwaner. Last time, Xin Sulan bit her to death but didn't let go. Mom, I really can't explain it for a while. If you don't want me to take Heihu there, then I'll go there secretly. There is a saying that those who are favored are always fearless. Even though Anwaner was unwilling to threaten the person who loved her from the bottom of her heart, she had the confidence to scare Xin Sulan at this moment. She looked at Xin Sulan's changed face and felt guilty. But thinking that only when I get those 2 things as soon as possible can I have the confidence to avoid the troubles that follow and cleanse my reputation. She immediately made up her mind, with a persistent face, and looked at Xin Sulan without any reservation. Can we still survive if something happens? Xin Sulan's eyes turned red and tears fell. Mom, I promise I will be careful. If you are careful, there will definitely be no more accidents. Getting lost was the excuse for the original owner to return late last night. But Anwaner, who has read the book, knew that neither Xin Sulan nor the original owner's father and Xingqiang actually knew that she had lost her virginity, but she didn't dare to expose it easily, for fear that she would commit suicide if she exposed it. It's really pitiful to the hearts of parents all over the world. Thinking that she had become Anwaner at this moment, she could no longer change the fact that she had kicked an unknown bun in her belly, and Anwaner wanted to sigh again. She begged Xin Sulan with a sad feeling, Mom, just trust me for a while. After I come back, I will tell you and my father everything that happened yesterday. Go home before dark. He looked at Anwaner calmly and saw the persistence in her eyes. Thinking of her usual stubbornness, the thing that was decided was that even the 9-headed cows could not be brought back. Xin Sulan knew that she could not continue to stop her. I knew my mother was the best for me. After hugging Xin Sulan, Anwaner breathed a sigh of relief and quickly left the house. Bring pancakes. Anwaner walked too fast and left the house before Xin Sulan could react. She could only chase her out and shouted at her back. New. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. Anwaner, who was already heading for the black tiger waiting at the gate, adjusted her direction in time and turned to the kitchen. I hurriedly grabbed the pancakes, but I didn't know how many pieces it was. I randomly wrapped the oil paper beside me, and Anwaner took the black tiger and walked quickly towards the direction of the mountain. On the mountain. The original owner Anwaner's memory is still very impressive. It didn't take much effort, Anwaner followed the route she passed and successfully found the silver notes she lost on the way yesterday. Seeing that it was covered with dust, it was still vaguely recognizable as blue-gray, embroidered with a rich and peaceful purse. When she opened it and saw the silver notes of different sizes and denominations rolled up inside, Anwaner let out a long sigh. Luckily, it's timely, and it's still here. Even if it was mentioned in the book, the purse was picked up by someone 3 days later. However, as long as this has not been retrieved by herself, Anwaner is just uneasy. She is such a lustful person. In this world where only 7 to 10 taels of silver can be bought for 1 acre of good fertile land, many ordinary people have never seen silver in their lifetime and have only used copper coins. Faced with a huge silver bill of 500 taels, she couldn't keep her calm attitude. After all, she and her parents, and there are little buns that will come out to see the world in 9 months, but they are not immortals who can survive by drinking dew. The silver notes have been retrieved, and the next thing is ginseng. Anwaner smiled proudly. The silver bills belong to her and the ginseng is also hers, and no one can be left behind. New book uploaded / scattering flowers. Please bookmark, please recommend tickets. Thank you all the babies who support Meng Xian, I love you. End of this chapter. The farm girl who traveled through the book has great fortune. Chapter 3, Good Luck. Chapter 3, Good Luck. I recalled the description in the book and found that the ginseng was located under a small knot far from the cave where Anwaner saved people but lost her virginity. The place is easy to recognize, and there are 2 crooked apple trees tangled together on the slope. The apples on the tree are pitiful, sour and unpalatable, and even the birds dislike them and don't like to peck. Anwaner remembered clearly that Su Fu had been to the mansion when he was young, and he was a little knowledgeable person, otherwise even if he picked up the wallet containing the silver notes she lost, he would probably not recognize the silver notes. It was because he recognized it and understood the numbers on the silver notes, so he was so happy that he was knocked by the branches of the apple tree and fell directly under the slope. He was lucky, and not only did he get injured, he actually found ginseng after the fall. Anwaner curled her lips. In the book, the author does not introduce the family background of his father in Xinjiang. Simply put, it is a native of the capital, a concubine's son, who cannot tolerate his mother being expelled by the family. Following her mother Xin Sulan back to her hometown, a small village not too far away in the capital. Because his mother looked good, Su Fu had been a toad since she was a child and wanted to eat swan meat and wanted to marry her. As a result, because of a serious illness of my grandfather, my mother was sold when she was in her teens. When she came back, she was already married and gave birth to her. At that time, although Su Futsai had already married and had children, he hated her parents for no reason and would find some discomfort for their family from time to time. The author of this book really has a grudge against the original owner and Anwaner's family. The fate of the original owner and Anwaner's family is not enough to be considered, but her enemy has to be full of luck. In the book, when the original owner and Anwaner's parents and Anwaner both died, leaving only a child less than 3 years old who was abused by the Lu family. But Su Futsai, like Lu Jinhua and Lu Rongyi, not only did he not receive any punishment, but his family had already moved to the city because he got the silver bill and ginseng. His son also passed the exam for the scholar. No. After filming, she couldn't help but feel angry because she recalled the plot. And Warner comforted herself, who asked her to wear books this time. Can she let her enemies get a bargain after knowing the plot? Taking the black tiger carefully down the small slope, and Warner quickly found the legendary ginseng. Digging ginseng is a cool job, you must be careful and careful. You can only use your hands to dig it out, and you have to pay special attention not to break the roots. Otherwise the price will be greatly reduced. Even if I already have silver notes, I don't plan to take action on ginseng that can save my life at this critical moment. But Anwana is still extra careful. But she had no experience. Even though she had doubled her attention, she still broke the 2 roots of the ginseng. After wiping sweat, Anwana felt sorry for a while. Thinking of her having a space with spiritual spring water, she tried to send the ginseng directly into the space without much hesitation. Seeing the deserted black soil, it looks very fertile. Worried that the ginseng would dry out when exposed to the outside, Anwana simply covered a layer of soil on the ginseng. After looking at the 2 broken ginseng roots, Anwana didn't know if the ginseng roots would grow again if they planted them directly. But she thought she could give it a try. So the broken roots were buried in the soil again. Of course, before burying it, she did not forget to put them in the spiritual spring water and soak them in thoughtful way. The Lingquan water is living water, and it looks endless. Anwana soaked the ginseng roots without any psychological pressure. After thinking about it, I dug up the ginseng that had been covered with a thin layer of soil and shook it. I also put it in the Lingquan water and soaked it, and then put it in the ground and covered it with soil. After trying it, Anwana found that even if she was outside, she could use her mind to control the spiritual spring water to water the black soil without entering the space. So she poured a lot of spiritual spring water on them with great enthusiasm. Especially when the 2 broken ginseng roots were buried, Anwana was not stingy with the Lingquan water at all. She drank until she saw that the 2 places had become small puddles before she could stop. After doing all this, Anwana, who was satisfied, looked at the position of the sun in the sky, only at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, couldn't help but smile, and wanted to sing happily. A good mood can bring good luck. On the way back, Anwana first saw black fungus growing densely on a dead tree that fell on the ground. Seeing that there was no one around, Hehu turned around, she directly took away the whole dead tree. When his ears moved, the black tiger, who noticed the movement, turned around. In the blink of an eye, there was only a clearing space left. Confusion flashed in its dark eyes. Then he subconsciously arched his body and showed a strong look of alertness, and shouted at the open space, "Woof." Anwana was amused and quickly patted her dog's head gently. "Don't bark, it's okay." "Fine." Hehu stopped talking and went to see Anwana in confusion. Anwana smiled and patted it again. "Don't worry, let's go." After walking with the black tiger for a few steps, Anwana saw 2 pheasants looking for food from afar. Ginseng stewed chicken. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. In an instant, Anwana thought of the recipe for tonight. She hurriedly made a shh move at Hehu, then pointed left and right, each person and dog separated carefully, and carefully faced each other. The 2 pheasants rushed over. "If you don't want to eat, you won't be at ease." The 2 pheasants were suddenly shocked and wanted to fly. Unfortunately, after a while of chaos, he was unable to escape the cruel black tiger and Anwana's claws. "The black tiger is a good one. I will give you some good supplements after simmering them in the evening. As long as you don't add salt, dogs should be able to eat ginseng chicken and drink ginseng chicken soup, right?" Anwana was very happy after pulling the vines and the 2 pheasants. She thought that her good luck today was almost over, but she didn't expect that it would be over. As she was getting closer and closer to home, she and Hehu actually met another one who broke their front legs for some reason. They were lying on the ground and struggling and humming, looking at 700 or 800. A big wild boar weighing pounds. TSK. This is definitely meat. Even though there has never been a lack of meat, when a full few hundred kilograms of free meat is in front of you. Thinking of the tender but not greasy flesh of the wild boar, Anwana still swallowed unyieldingly. I suddenly thought of the deliciousness of salted pork trotters, plum vegetable buckles, and pork meatballs, and almost drooled on the spot. The black tiger was not much better than Anwana. He also stared at the big wild boar with his eyes shining, swallowing hard. The big wild boar was chilling, and the full sense of crisis made it struggle even more violently to get up. It also increased the huff, scream, bared its fangs, widened its big eyes like a copper bell, and tried its best to make it the two foodies who are obviously coveting themselves are scared away. Unfortunately, it failed. Facing the cunning person, Anwana, who was unwilling to approach, only carried a big stone to hit her head, and the black tiger who was happily wagging her tail around her, her eyes gradually showed a look of despair. End of this chapter. The Farm Girl Who Traveled Through the Book Has Great Fortune. Chapter 4, Magical Space Spiritual Spring Water. Chapter 4, The Magical Space Spiritual Spring Water. After smashing the big wild boar, Anwana was so happy that she was so angry that she almost couldn't stop talking about her good luck today. This is a reversal of things, so after she became cannon fodder after she was unlucky, she was compensated for the space with the spiritual spring, but she also had good luck with koi. Anwana, who was puzzled, quickly put aside this question that was destined to be unable to get answers by thinking about it. She and the excited black tiger walked around the big wild boar and found that she could not move it with her own hands, let alone take it back. Her eyes rolled and she took out her handkerchief. He held a branch and wrote a few words on the blood from the wound of the wild boar. While Anwana was glad that her original body had known words, she was glad that her original deity had studied traditional Chinese medicine with her grandfather since she was a child. She not only had access to reading, but also had no problem writing. Blow dry the blood on the handkerchief and let the black tiger bite it. Anwana patted the dog's head and smiled, I'm here to guard it. Go back and ask my father to find someone to bring this big guy down the mountain. Otherwise, we too don't have the ability to get it back. The wild boar is too big, so it would be fine if Anwana uses space to transport it down the mountain. She doesn't have much space, but it's still okay to put down a big wild boar. But Anwana would never do that. The space must not be exposed. Even if it is a heart-to-heart for herself and loves herself more than their own parents, she will not tell them the big secret of having the spiritual spring space. She was worried that they could not bear such a secret, which became a burden to them instead. So it's not just them, but she won't reveal any secrets about this space in the future. Whoom. After hearing Anwana's words, Hehu shouted at her twice, shook his tail and excitedly held the handkerchief in his mouth, turned around and disappeared quickly in front of her. As soon as the black tiger left, the bored Anwana first prayed to her parents who loved her so much that she could not faint because of her handkerchief. Then I focused on the space. As the consciousness stumbled into the space, Anwana's eyes were so shocked that she was straightened. What did she see? In the space, the two broken roots that she had put in before actually arched out of the soil in such a short period of time, and grew back into a piece, only the exposed part was seen. It contains ginseng from 500 to 600 years. Try to dig them out with your mind. Anwana found that her thoughts were very useful in this space. With just one thought, the ginseng would appear in front of her intact. After seeing it clearly, Anwana was even more shocked. The ginseng, which was originally just 2 roots, really grew like 500 or 600 years old. And the whole ginseng that was originally 300 years old is even more exaggerated. It looks like it is at least 1,000 tales of vintage now. The whole roots spread out, and they were almost the same height as the adult man. Anwana. 7 liang of ginseng is ginseng, and 8 liang is treasure. Now that she has changed 3 times, she has 3 more treasures. Can she still drink her ginseng chicken soup? She definitely couldn't take out all 3 ginsengs, she could only take one small one to avoid scaring her parents. But even this little one, I'm afraid her parents would put it away as a family heirloom. After thinking about it, Anwana could only fold 2 more pieces of roots from a small ginseng, and then buried them directly in the soil and irrigated them with different amounts of spiritual spring water. Now she went down, and she planted 2 smaller ginseng with Lingquan water to avoid the ginseng chicken soup on her mouth flying. The effect of her space spiritual spring water on plants is really too good. I don't know what will happen if a human or an animal drinks it. Remove all diseases and prolong life. I couldn't help but look at the big wild boar whose head was almost blooming by her. Anwana turned her gaze away and looked at the two listless ones, but she was still breathing. Pheasant. After finding a leaf, Anwana used her mind to lure some spiritual spring water out to feed the two pheasants. The two pheasants were still wilted, whether they were drinking water or finished drinking it. It was still the same, and he did not show any like it at all, and he looked more energetic. Well, it seems that this spiritual spring water has no effect on animals. Also, there seems to be no side effects. Otherwise, keep them first, eat pig slaughtering vegetables tonight, and ginseng chicken soup tomorrow. By the way, if there is nothing wrong with them, try drinking some spiritual spring water to see if this spiritual spring water is also of no benefit to people. After thinking about it, Anwana kindly helped the two pheasants adjust their positions. Let their heads face the grassy ground so that they can eat by themselves. After doing this, Anwana saw wild growing nearby. She picked up a piece of stone and planted it into the black soil in the space. She buried it very shallowly, and this time she was much more careful when watering the wild again, and only watered 2 small drops. After watering the Lingquan water, she stared at it with decent eyes and soon discovered that the Lingquan water had a very powerful effect on plants. With just 2 drops of spiritual spring water, the wild actually grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a while, it grew into a piece before it stopped growing. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. Looking at the roots of the 2 ginseng that she planted again before, Anwana found that they had also stopped growing. This time, because she didn't say that there were too many spiritual springs, one had grown into a year of about 100 years, and the other had only about 30 years. That's enough. Anwana with satisfaction pulled her consciousness out of the space, looked at no one around, and drew a drop of spiritual spring water on a vine, watching the vine grow wildly before stopping. She began to pull the vines and weave the straw curtains. Take out the 3 ginseng and roll them into the weaved straw curtain, tie them carefully and put them aside, and Anwana continued to weave the basket. The skill of weaving baskets was not known to her, but to her original body Anwana. She remembered that she had some hands at first, but gradually she got better and better. She didn't weave the basket big. After she finished weaving it, she put 2 old ones in it and piled it with black fungus on it, and then she put the ginseng, which was only 30 years old, on the top. After doing all this, she heard the cry of the black tiger coming from afar. Father dash. Anwana threw down the half-finished basket and stood up. Sure enough, she saw her father and Xingqiang in the book, bringing Wang Butcher Wang and his 3 sons in the village with ropes and long sticks. Wana, why are you so brave? I just got lost in this mountain yesterday, and I dared to enter the mountain again today. End of this chapter. The Farm Girl Who Traveled Through the Book Has Great Fortune. Chapter 5, The Witty Anwana. Chapter 5, The Witty Anwana. When Anwana saw that she was fine, and Xingqiang breathed a sigh of relief and couldn't help but blame her. When Xiangu came back from the town today, when he bought the medicine and anchan soup, and Xingqiang heard that his daughter had to go into the mountain again without listening to advice and began to sit and lie down. He originally wanted to go into the mountain to find it. But the mountain was too big, and he was afraid that he would go the wrong way with Anwana. I thought that it would be nothing big to have a black tiger follow him, so I gave up. This cannot be blamed for Xingqiang for making a fuss. It really scared Anwana when she came back yesterday. He is not blind, how could he not guess what Anwana had encountered? The anger and pain in his heart were no less than Anwana. Especially last night, Anwana had nightmares and was restless sleeping, and it was not quiet until dawn. He wanted to use a knife to chop the lustful person and where he was. But he couldn't do it. He and Xian Sulan didn't even dare to ask Anwana what happened, for fear that if they asked, they would make her so embarrassed that she would go on the road of suicide. The 2 of them had only one bloodline. No matter what, they would rather support her and never marry her for the rest of their lives than to give her a white-haired person a black-haired person. So they could only choose an ostrich, just pretending that Anwana was really just lost. So before, Heihu came back with a veil in his arms, almost scaring Xingqiang and Xian Sulan who were already frightened and anxious. But now, seeing Nwana looking leisurely and free, as if she had forgotten what happened yesterday, and Xingqiang began to become a little uncertain again. He secretly speculated in his heart that he had actually made the mistake before. Yesterday on this mountain, their Nwana was really lost and fell down. She was frightened and was frightened. And Xingqiang thought so, as he also worked hard last night to help find someone in the mountains. I have also seen Nwana's embarrassed appearance, and I think she was the butcher Wang and his 3 sons who were ruined. At this moment, I was curious to see Nwana who seemed too calm. The 4 of them also doubted their own guesses in their hearts. Did they make a mistake? After all, they would not think that if an unmarried woman really encounters such a thing, she will be able to do such a vague way the next day. I have already decided what they will think, and this is the effect they want. Nwana has tried her best to stop questioning her own innocence and make those rumors disappear automatically. She smiled with pursed lips, faced their puzzled expressions, looking like she knew nothing and didn't know what they were thinking, and took out the 30-year-old ginseng like a treasure to Xingqiang. He said happily, "Dad, look at the ginseng I dug." Ginseng? And ginseng? And Xingqiang and Wang Butcher and his son were both shocked and looked over at the same time. I saw that the ginseng on Nwana's hand was not big but had a very good appearance but had different expressions. This is true. Will there be a blessing in the future if you survive the disaster? Ginseng is rare, even if it is just a small one for 30 years, it is enough to make Butcher Wang and his 3 sons envious. The 4 of them immediately looked at the ginseng without blinking. Wang Sanlang, the 3rd son of Butcher Wang, said enviously, "This thing is light, but one thing may be worth the 10 wild boars. It should be more than that. Didn't I use ginseng when I was dispensing medicine? It just took 10 taels of silver just short of the small piece that was as thick as my finger. Although this ginseng is not big, it looks at least it can also be sold for 150 taels. Wang Erlang said affirmatively. Silly, can the price of ginseng bought at the pharmacy and sold at the same price? If this ginseng is sold at the pharmacy, the price of 120 taels of ginseng is a conscientious price. Butcher Wang reached out and knocked Wang Erlang's. He whispered his head and said to his 3 sons, "Don't stand up. Come and tie the wild boar and carry it away. If you delay it, it will be dark this day. If the mountain road is not easy to walk, it will be fine. What if the smell of blood attracts a big beast again? That's right, we only have a few people. It would be amazing if there was another wild boar." Wang Dalong responded, but his hands were not idle. He didn't forget to ask Nwana, "Did you really meet a wild boar yesterday? Why would I be so embarrassed if I didn't meet a wild boar?" Nwana widened her eyes and asked in surprise. "Well?" Wang Dalong scratched his head, but for a moment he was speechless. Wang Erlang was clever and hurriedly helped him add, "Hee, my elder brother is actually trying to ask, is this the big wild boar you met yesterday? It's definitely not. I saw the one I saw clearly last night, and my ears on one side were half missing. I remember that the book wrote that in 2 months, the hunters in their village would hunt from the mountain to a wild boar with half the ears back. In order to confirm that I was really just chased by a wild boar last night, Nwana simply said this. It seems that I really encountered a wild boar yesterday. Otherwise, how could even be said of the wild boar?" And Xingqiang, when Butcher Wang and his 3 sons believed in Nwana's words 70%. This time, it immediately changed to 10 points. Knowing that there were other wild boars nearby, Butcher Wang and his 3 sons' movements accelerated a little. Soon the big wild boar was tied to the long stick they brought, and the father and son carried it down the mountain one by one. Picking up the pheasant on the ground, and Xingqiang asked Nwana, who had already wrapped the ginseng back into the straw curtain and left first, and followed her by herself. On the way, Xingqiang was glad and scared to Nwana, "Nwana, you should not come back on this mountain in the future. Now, this wild boar is getting closer and closer to the village, which is too rampant. It's a safe life. If you meet again, it's hard to say whether you can get out of here. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading, that is." Before Nwana could say anything, Butcher Wang immediately continued, "We have to talk to Li Zheng as soon as possible. I haven't been hunting up the mountain for 2 or 3 years, which will shock the beasts, otherwise they can't do this. Furious. It is customary for each village to organize one person in the village to go up the mountain to hunt and shock the animals in the mountains every few years. It would be impossible not to be shocked. Wouldn't it be worse if the villagers were injured in the mountains or even lost their lives? Yes, Dad, we'd better go and talk to Li Zheng tonight. Otherwise, if anyone goes up the mountain next time, it would be amazing to meet the wild boar with no ears. Wang Daolong interrupted in a muffled voice. By relying on the mountains and living in the mountains, an family is an outsider from the capital, with a solid family background. I have land at home but never go to the land. I rent all the land to the people in the village and can eat meat almost every day. This is no secret in the village. Now the daughter of An's family is extremely lucky. She has ginseng and a wild boar that fell to death, and 2 pheasants. It is inevitable that they will add a lot of money to their family's assets, which is really enviable. Therefore, it is no different for the An family members who cannot go up the mountain. They can still eat delicious food and drink spicy food as usual. But they can't. Even if their family is a butcher, life is better than that of most villagers, and the women at home have to go up the mountain from time to time to pick up firewood, find some fruits, wild vegetables, pig grass, etc. to supplement them. End of this chapter. The Farm Girl Who Traveled Through the Book Has Great Fortune. Chapter 6, It's also a good skill to be reincarnate. Chapter 6, Being reincarnated is also a good skill. You still need to say this? Butcher Wang glanced at Wang Daolong sideways. It just so happens that this meat is ready-made evidence. When Brother Wang went there, he cut 2 more pounds to take with him. It would be a good idea to see if the meat is authentic. Seeing Wang Daolong shrinking his head because of Wang Butcher's words, and Xingqiang smiled and said, "This time we will do it according to previous year's practices. It's better for your family to help me with 1 more person." Okay, no problem. Butcher Wang was very satisfied with An Xingqiang's generosity and agreed. Their family has many people. According to previous years, An Xingqiang asked them to have 1 more person. His family not only had 1 tael of silver to make the money, but even half of the meat they had to share. Of course, this is not without risks. If the person who went to their family was injured, no matter how minor the injury was. If you are seriously injured or even die, you will at most get the other half of your flesh. No more compensation can be claimed. Since Butcher Wang dared to take over the money to help An's family and earn the money he had. Of course, I have enough confidence in my family's skills. Not only is he confident, but even his 3 sons. So, at this time, I heard that my family would make another small investment. From Wang Daolong to Wang Erlang and Wang Sanlang, the corners of his lips kept tilting up. It was not yet dark, and most of the few people in the mountains had already gone down the mountain to go home. However, there are still many women and children who are still busy picking firewood and digging wild vegetables at the foot of the mountain. Seeing An Xingqiang and Butcher Wang and others working together to carry a big wild boar worth hundreds of kilograms, most of the people put down their work and ran to watch the fun. "Dolly, you and your son are really capable. Can such a big guy be hunted? This living wild boar is terrifying, but dead, it's all meat." Many people couldn't help swallowing, looking at it with envious or jealous eyes. The same is true for Mr. Wang's Aunt Sue, who only asked without droolingly. Subconsciously, everyone ignored An Xingqiang and An Weiner. They just thought they had happened to meet Wang Butcher and his son and walk together. Hee, if we father and son really have such great ability, why are we butchers? Isn't it good to go up the mountain to find this lack of capital meat every day? Being misunderstood did not affect Butcher Wang's good mood. I regretted that this pig was not his own. He saw him smile and explained to the woman, "Aunt San, this was the girl from An's family who ran into the mountain with Heihu. It was Heihu who came back to report the news. Brother Xingqiang just asked us to go up the mountain. Go and carry it back. Didn't you see that the wild boar had broken its front legs?" After the reminder of Butcher Wang, everyone realized that both front legs of the wild boar were injured. Suddenly, the crowd was in an uproar, and then they focused on An Waner and An Xingqiang. Those jealous eyes naturally moved over. After this move, I naturally saw the two pheasants in Xingchang's hand and the basket Wana was holding. There are actually pheasants. Compared with the basket Wana is holding, it is naturally more attractive to the pheasant. After staring at the pheasant for several times, Su turned his head and asked Wana sorely, "Wana, aren't you just lost on the mountain yesterday? Why are you so anxious to go up the mountain again? I don't know what luck this little girl from An's family is. If she had known that there would have been wild boars and pheasants to pick them up, she would have gone long ago and would have been her turn." Su's jealousy was on his face, and the others were not much better. No need to guess, most of them are thinking like this. Many people also discussed waiting for a long time to go up the mountain to try their luck and pick up a few pheasants, hares, etc. After hearing their discussion, Wana laughed a few times in her heart, clarified with a lip, "This pheasant was not picked up by me on the mountain, it was captured by my black tiger. It also discovered the wild boar." After saying this, she showed off her ginseng with a familiarity. She opened the straw curtain and exposed more than half of the ginseng, swayed at everyone, and said in a proud tone that was so angry that I was frightened yesterday and fell down the hillside. "I saw this ginseng. Yesterday, I was so scared by the wild boar that I didn't care about digging. Isn't that what I hurried up the mountain to dig back? Otherwise, who would know how many wild boars were having fun on the mountain? How dare I run in alone? There are wild boars on the mountain." Su and everyone were shocked. Wild boars are usually in the deep mountains, and few of them run out. These 2 days have really scared them one after another. Don't underestimate it, it's a big guy who can't beat even tigers and leopards. That's right, the beasts on the mountain have started to be rampant recently. Yesterday, I was scared that Wana had half of her ears and had not found it yet. You will tell everyone when you go back, don't go into the mountain again. It's true, life is important. Butcher Wang shouted loudly and also reminded everyone again. Everyone. Of course, life is important. There are no ready-made ginseng on the mountain for them to dig for them, so it is worth their adventure to go in. This little girl from N's family is really lucky. For a moment, everyone's desire to go into the mountains to get a bargain was relieved. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. Seeing everyone showing timid appearance, Wana, who had completely realized that she didn't like to show off with things. This time, this was the real intention of showing off with the ginseng again and again, but in fact, it was for the purpose of stop the rumors in the village. And Xingchang immediately showed a look of hatred and said to everyone with hatred, "The one who chased my Wana yesterday was the wild boar with ears missing. When the village is hunting, you can keep the whole one for me. I have to make it all into jerky meat and jerky for my Wana to eat it as snacks to relieve my hatred. The N family is not short of money, and Wana doesn't like to eat bacon, so the meat at home is freshly bought. However, every time someone hunts a wild boar, and Xingchang will buy a lot of them and make them into the jerky that Wana likes for her to keep as snacks. It's not only a day or two that Xingchang is pampering his daughter like this. It is too short to hide it from others, but it has been more than 10 years since N's family moved to their Wangshan village. Every now and then, his family had to buy at least 1 pork to make jerky, and the fresh pork on weekdays had almost never stopped. There are only a few families with only 3, and the meat they eat is much better than that of other dozen people in the village. Not only did the chickens, ducks and eggs I raised on weekdays, I never saw N's family take them out for oil, salt, sauce and vinegar. When I was curious, I naturally would not miss people who had good things to inquire. So now I heard Xingchang say this and know that he will be offered a high price at that time. The people present agreed happily and went to see Wana. Everyone couldn't help but think that reincarnation was a good skill that even people couldn't even envy. End of this chapter. The Farm Girl Who Traveled Through the Book Has Great Fortune. Chapter 7, Pigs Trotters Flying Away with Wings. Chapter 7, Pigs Trotters Flying Away with Wings. Wana dug up ginseng, caught a pheasant, and even picked up a big wild boar. The news spread quickly. Knowing that the N family is not short of money, they will not sell wild boar meat like other people's families. So no one in the village came to buy it in vain. The butcher and his son have to kill at least one pig every day. Practice makes perfect. When slaughtering the wild boar from An's family, it will naturally be handled quickly and well. After seeing the happy Wen butcher and his son away, An Xingchang closed the yard door and turned around. I happened to see Nwana holding a large piece, and I guessed that at least 4 or 5 kilograms of meat could be thrown to Heihu. Watching the joyful waving his tail and protecting his flesh, he ran to the corner, and couldn't wait to start eating the voracious black tiger. And Xingchang quickly glanced at the direction of the kitchen, and then whispered helplessly at Nwana, "Why do you give it so much at one breath? If you are used to eating this in the future, you will always ask for it. How did you get a lot of it?" "No, I told it that it won't be like this every day, and you will eat as much as you give it in the future." Nwana also lowered her voice and replied in a low voice, "Heihu is very obedient and won't make trouble. Okay, if you are willing to give it more, you can't take a bite of it." When Xingchang heard Nwana say this, he immediately nodded in confusion. After all, he lived a life of extreme wealth. Even though I am now in a downturn, I still don't think it's a big deal to feed a dog with a few pounds of meat. Besides, he always feels that he owes Nwana. Thinking about my current life, it's really not a little worse than before. This is also a blame for his incompetence. He has no longer the ability to give his wife and daughter a better life in luxury after leaving his family. So he told him to talk more about Nwana for such a few kilograms of meat. He felt like he had no face. You just spoil her. With her big-handed nature, no matter who she married in the future, who can stand it? The father and daughter lowered their voices and spoke in order not to let Xin Sulan hear something and say. As a result, the sky was not as good as others wished. Even though Xin Sulan came out, she only listened to half of the words, but saw the black tiger with her family carrying her back and gnawing meat, and she was gnawing with an extra joy. What else did she not understand? Today is far from the past. Even if they feel sorry for their daughter, Nwana will never be able to marry into a wealthy family when she gets married. It is probably the same to be able to marry a small wealthy family with similar wealth as theirs. Xin Sulan felt helpless in her heart. Unfortunately, Nwana's problem of being too useless and unruly, never thought that she would be like this when she went to her husband's house in the future. Will she not tolerate her husband's family? But can she blame her husband and Xingchang? Of course it cannot be. After all, she knew it very well that their family's days are excellent in the eyes of the villagers. But for his husband and Xingchang, it is already rare and valuable that he can force him to adapt to his life like this. So, how could she blame him more than ordinary farmers? What kind of petty life is that if you have a pound of meat that can be regarded as a pound of Chinese New Year, and you can't bear to eat it normally? So, in the end, Xin Sulan could only sigh and said this and didn't say anything more. However, seeing that she still had an angry look on her face, and Xingchang and Nwana were both embarrassed like the children who were arrested for doing bad things. The father and daughter smiled flatteringly at Xin Sulan at the same time. And Xingchang reacted quickly, and immediately said to Xin Sulan after laughing, "I'll go and burn firewood for you." "Hee, Mom, I'll go to the kitchen to help you cook pig slaughter dishes. I've long been thinking about how to get blood sausage." Nwana also rushed over, hugging Xin Sulan's arm with a flattering face and said with a flattering look, "You can teach me how to make jerky meat. Will it be good if I change to make jerky meat for you and your father in the future?" And Xingchang likes pig-killing vegetables with blood sausage. No need to ask about jerky meat. Not only Nwana likes it, but Xingchang and Xin Sulan also like it very much. Moreover, the jerky can be stored for a long time, so it is very convenient to carry it when you go out. So the N family has never lacked these two things all year round, and they will make them again before they have eaten them. Perhaps because of the fact that the blood sausage and jerky are made, the jerky made by Xin Sulan tastes particularly good. Although Nwana hasn't tried it herself, relying solely on the original owner's memory is enough for her to drool. She wanted to go into the kitchen. After all, in addition to the things the original owner liked to eat, she also liked them even more, including many dishes such as salt and salted pork trotters, plum vegetable buckles, pork meatballs, etc. If she didn't go into the kitchen, how could she vacate them? The more I thought about it, the more saliva came out. Go, it would be nice if you don't make trouble for me. And Wana was able to take the initiative to ask for help, which made Xian Sulan feel very fond of it. But she couldn't bear to bear the burden, so she refused without thinking. After flattening his mouth, Wana insisted unconvincedly, "Mom, I'm so old, I'll learn to help you with work long ago. Otherwise, you would be too tired if you always watch you do it alone. I feel distressed when I look at it. I really grew up, and I know I feel sorry for my mother." Seeing Wana persisting, Xian Sulan's heart was sweet and sour. No mistakes, one song, one content, 1 in 6, one book, one bar, one reading. Being sensible when you grow up also means it's time to get married. Although he only has this daughter, neither in Xingqiang nor Xian Sulan had ever thought of hiring a son-in-law. There are really not many son-in-law who can become successful, and luck will often lead to success. Both of them were very indifferent to the aftermath, hoping that their daughter would be better than anything else. After rubbing Wana's hair, Xian Sulan shook her head with a smile, and then brought out the old sayings before to reject her. "Our family is only 3 people. Your father has done all the rough work of carrying water and chopping firewood. Can you still give me some? How many lives do I leave behind? Besides, all other tasks are wrong. If you feel bored, go embroider. In the future, as long as you have the skills of embroidery, you will not get involved in other tasks when you marry someone, and seeing that you can make money, your in-laws will not be too picky." "Mom, but I don't think I like embroidery that much, I prefer to learn how to make food." And Wana seemed to see her salt pig's trotters already had wings and began to stay away from her. She looked stubborn and refused to give up and continued to act coquettishly. When she was in modern times, her favorite things were not only reading novels but also cooking all kinds of delicious food. "Even my spare time is taken up by these 2 things, and even my boyfriend has no time to talk about it. Now that she has worn a book, she can't read the novel. If this food is not allowed to touch her hands, what kind of fun will she have in life?" Besides, she knew that the original owner didn't like to stay in the house all day to embroider, otherwise he wouldn't always make excuses to go to the mountains to play, and something happened in the end. Thinking about the guy who didn't know who it was, Wana became a little irritable. Why is this book not worn into the finished book, but into the serialized novel? This is clearly not in line with common sense, right? End of this chapter. The Farm Girl Who Traveled Through the Book Has Great Fortune. Chapter 8, Ginseng, Big Radish. Chapter 8, Ginseng, Big Radish. I know you feel sorry for your mother, but I feel sorry for you too. Xian Sulan just thought Wana was still reluctant to work hard, but she still refused without any doubt. Be good, just listen to your mother. Women can live a comfortable life in the few years they have been in their parents' home. If you are tragic, you are afraid that you can't help but don't want to do your job. Wana refused to give up, so she continued to get entangled with Xian Sulan, and wanted to pull in Xingqiang to try to convince Xian Sulan. Unfortunately, not only Xian Sulan refused to pay much attention to her, but even Xingqiang was the same and did not help her. Showing a little guilty, Xingqiang sighed to Xian Sulan, "I have been so wronged by you over the years. Why don't we buy an old lady and come back? At least you can relax faster." "I don't buy it. I don't feel wronged at all." Xian Sulan rejected Xingqiang's proposal and said with a smile, "I don't do anything normally. You always help me with your spare time. You have to support your family and work at home and outside, and you have never felt tired. I was used to doing things when I was young at my parents' home. Now I have much less work than I did at that time. How can I be tired? And, don't you think we are living a very comfortable life without outsiders and without any right and wrong now? Okay, then wait a few more years. When we are old, we will buy a yard near Wana's husband's house as we discussed earlier, and then buy a few people to come back to serve. Let's live our lives." Xian Sulan likes such simple days, isn't Xingqiang the same? So he didn't persist any more, but he still felt guilty in his heart. With the desire to compensate her, he spoke to Xian Sulan and said, "Don't make all pork into jerky, leave more, and give 50 kilograms to his father-in-law and mother-in-law tomorrow." What to leave? Without being happy about Xingqiang's words, Xian Sulan's face fell down. "You don't know that lean meat can only be used to make jerky. If I really keep the lean meat and send it to you, maybe my sister-in-law and sister-in-law will be so sarcastic that we are stingy. I don't know how to send the good fatty meat to honor my parents. She said angrily, they are becoming more and more unsatisfied. Yesterday we mistakenly thought that something happened to Warner, and all the messy words spread everywhere. Do you think they didn't hear it? But who cares about us? Even if I came over and took a look, I was unwilling to take care of Warner's appearance. But you see, as soon as the news of the wild boar is spread, tomorrow, if I don't send the pork after a while, they will definitely come over to question and ask for it. Xin Sulan really regrets that she chose to come back here. At the beginning, she thought that her parents had to sell her. When she could come back, she only thought about fulfilling her filial piety in front of her parents in the future. And when something happens, parents and brothers can help their families stand up and support themselves. It is also possible to avoid going elsewhere and being unfamiliar with your family, and being bullied by others if you are weak. But she thought too well. After coming back, I cried countless times behind my back. She had to admit that she was wrong. She was thinking about her family affection, but to her parents, her daughter was just a money tree. They wished they could shaking her baldly, then cut down trees and sell them for money, and they didn't care about her family's life or death. Anyone who is weaker, she is afraid that she will eat her family alive first, which is her so-called close relatives. A sad look flashed in his eyes, and Xin Sulan laughed self-deprecatingly. There is no need to take as much as 50 kilograms, 20 kilograms are enough. If it weren't for not being willing to ask people to talk, even these 20 kilograms were I don't want to give it to you. Haha, no matter how much we take it, they will only dislike us for not sending the whole pig. And Xingchang. Think about the harsh and greed of the sister-in-law of the Yu family, and the father-in-law, brother-in-law, and brother-in-law who let it go. He could understand Xin Sulan's discomfort, so he nodded silently. And Warner blinked. On the side of my mother's family, she knew a little about her grandfather, grandmother, 2 uncles and aunts. However, because most of the time, she was blocked from contacting there, but she would go there during festivals and come back without eating, so she didn't know in detail. Now, just hearing the moment when her mother's resentment towards her family is very serious, and Warner decided to stay away from them in the future and just don't care about it. Anyway, this time, my mother probably wouldn't let her accompany her back to her parents' house to deliver meat. Sure enough, just as she thought so, she heard Xin Sulan say to her, Warner, you will follow your father to go shopping in the county tomorrow. After we come back, we will all say that we have sold the ginseng so that we will not make any more money for it. And right and wrong will come again. No, my dad just needs to go to the county town alone. I want to stay at home. Originally, Anwana wanted to nod her head obediently, but when she thought that the opportunity was rare, she would not take advantage of the time when her mother sent the pork back to her parents' home and quickly touched the kitchen and showed off her skills. Then it will be even more difficult to find an opportunity to enter the kitchen in the future. Thinking of this, she immediately whispered to Xin Sulan and Xingchang, Dad, Mother, let's eat ginseng stew tomorrow. I heard that it is particularly nourishing. I want to stay at home and watch the fire. No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. Purification is nourishing, but ginseng must be kept. That thing that can be saved in the future. Looking at Anwana lovingly, Xin Sulan smiled and said, especially when a woman gives birth, she is like breaking through the gates of hell. Ginseng must be kept for you as a dowry, and then you can use it. No, there is more than that ginseng. He pulled Racine Sulan and Xingchang and pulled them closer to him. Anwana mysteriously said to the 2 of them in a very low voice, I dug 3 and only took the smallest one for people to see. 3 ginseng. When did ginseng become a big radish that can be seen everywhere? And Xingchang and Xin Sulan both twitched their faces, a little disbelief. But when I saw that Anwana really pulled out 2 big and small pieces from the straw basket she brought back. The smaller one is similar to the previous one, the larger one looks like 500 or 600 years old, even when it is a rare ginseng in aristocratic families. The 2 of them took a breath of cold air at the same time. Ginseng for 500 or 600 years is hard to find, and it can be regarded as a family heirloom. This is not a deep mountain. It is incredible that there are ginseng of this year. And Xingqiang was already holding the big ginseng, and he still felt unreal and he was still dreaming. If you recommend votes and collect them, you can also appear like in Warner Space. As long as you think about it, you can appear as many ginseng as Big Radish. How great would it be? Little cuties, big cuties, seeing that Meng Xian is already drooling, hurry up and throw the recommendation tickets. /smile, /continue to smile and look at you. End of this chapter. The Farm Girl Who Traveled Through the Book Has Great Fortune. Chapter 9, Nightmare. Chapter 9, Nightmare. Xin Sulan was almost the same. She even reached out and pinched herself before stuttering, "Wana. Did you really find this? Why didn't you say it directly in the morning?" In the morning, if Wana told the truth, could she still stop her like that? Xin Sulan thought she had figured out why Wana was so anxious to go up the mountain in the morning. I couldn't help but look at her funny and angry, not understanding such a good thing. What exactly can't she explain? Looking at Wana with some angriness, Xin Sulan couldn't help but reach out and patted her gently. "It's still not worry-free when she grows up. You don't know how scared my father and I were yesterday, is it? I just don't dare to show it in front of you. Don't blame the child either. Isn't it better than anything?" And Xingqiang was open-minded and was not too entangled with the subtle comfort Xin Sulan said. "And Wana, dot." She lowered her head and slowly digged holes on the ground with her toes. "I thought of what I was about to tell my parents. Even though she comes from modern times, she is not as conservative as ancient women, and is a little exaggerated, and she has to seek death if she has a flaw in her reputation, but she also feels shame." "Wana, what's wrong with you?" And Wana's fault was too obvious. Even if Xin Sulan and Xingqiang wanted to ignore it, they could not ignore it. The two of them glanced at each other for a moment, and Xin Sulan asked with some concern. "Dad, Mom, I actually had something wrong." He lowered his head lower, and Wana said in a voice like a mosquito, "I used to be like this, but in fact I was just to cover up the truth and stop the rumors in the village. But..." After pausing, Wana seemed to have enough courage and said, "I'm afraid if I don't tell you now, if I wait until I have a baby in my belly, I will not have time to make complete preparations." "There is a baby in the belly." Xin Sulan and Xingqiang were both struck by lightning. They staggered for a moment, and involuntarily turned their eyes to Wana's belly. This clearly tells them that their Wana was really ruined yesterday. After taking a deep breath, he barely calmed himself down. And Xingqiang tried his best not to let his voice sound louder, so as not to alarm outsiders. He gritted his teeth and said, "Who is it? Do you know who that is? Even if he fights his life, he has to come to him." "Have no idea." And Wana shook her head and continued to lower her head and whisper, "He is injured. I took him to a safe place out of kindness to help him bandage the wound." Unexpectedly, he would suddenly lose his mind and do such a thing as gratitude and revenge. "By the time I woke up, he had already left, leaving only this purse and the 500 taels of silver notes inside. After that, I found ginseng in a daze. But I didn't have the heart to dig and lost my purse. So I just entered the mountain this morning." He took out the purse with silver notes and pulled it in his hand, but Wana didn't look up. The same was true when Xin Sulan pulled her purse away, and she still kept her head down. It was too embarrassing and too unfair. She really didn't know what expression she should use to face the two of them when she looked up. "This is tribute satin." Before he could buy the purse, he just took a look and Xin Sulan couldn't help but feel secretly shocked. When she started touching her brows frowned tightly. "Su embroidery, the embroidery skills are superb. I am afraid that the craftsmanship of the top embroiderer in the capital is nothing more than that." Judging from the fabric, embroiderer of the purse, and the huge amount of silver notes contained inside, the person's identity will definitely not be low. Similarly, such a person will not lack women. In that case, he could attack Wana, who saved him. Unless he is a hungry ghost among lusts, he can still be destined to see lusts in such a situation. Otherwise, it's just that there is a reason for the matter. For example, if you are infected with something that cannot be cured by a woman. According to Xian Sulan and Xingchang's ideas, it is probably even greater that the latter one is. If that were the case, I was afraid that he would leave if he left, which was important at the time. When he recovers, he is very likely to come back. If he insists on taking Wanner as his concubine, then with their current status, they may not be able to stop it at all. This place can't be lived. Xian Sulan and Xingchang looked up at each other at the same time, and instantly realized that the other party had similar thoughts to him, so they said in unison. And Wanner couldn't help but look up and looked at the two of them in confusion. Why? Xian Sulan sighed and said the reasons he guessed, with red eyes, and said sadly, we can't afford to provoke those noble people. Even if they just said casually, a light and uneasy sentence, we want to resist it. He shakes the tree with a slut, and like a mantis blocks a car. That's right, no matter how bad our family is, I won't ask you to be a concubine. And Xingchang also clenched his fists and said extremely persistently, I would rather be a poor wife than a rich concubine. A concubine is in business, even if she is favored for a while, it will be impossible to be reliable, and it will even harm her descendants. So since if we can't afford to offend, we can only hide. And Wanner. No mistakes, one song, one content, 1 in 6, one book, one bar, one reading. My parents were actually worried too much. In the book, even if the person in 3 or 4 years later, the person did not come back. However, when thinking about the identity of her father and son, her own grandmother is a concubine. Perhaps it was wrong, his words must be a personal pain. So they are unwilling to embark on that path, and they are destined to move in a tragic way, which is also understandable. So, and Wanner nodded after not thinking about it anymore. A whole of hundreds of kilograms of wild boar meat needs to be made into jerky and lard, and there are still a lot of things to do. It would take a long time to deal with it only with Xian Sulan and in Xingchang. After using supper, she finally ended up being in Wanner's abnormal persistence. Xian Sulan and in Xingchang were both thinking about her current situation. It was probably impossible to get married, and they would probably have to set up a female household to stay at home in the future. So the two of them no longer insisted that she only knew how to embroider, which was enough. So in the end, Wanner stayed and worked with the two until nearly midnight. I was so tired that I thought I would have dreamed of dawn. Unexpectedly, Wanner had a nightmare all night. There was a famine in my dream first, and even a large number of famine victims rushed to the capital. It was extremely real, and it seemed as if I was immersed in the scene that I saw the tragedy of eating in the fields, and I really scared Wanner, who had only experienced peaceful times when she grew up. She struggled to wake up. But she couldn't do it. She could only watch the victims as if she was watching a movie, because of the indifference of the court, and simply closed the city gates and refused to flock to the capital. They can only go to the people around them. End of this chapter. The farm girl who traveled through the book has great fortune. Chapter 10, Can't Leave. Chapter 10 Can't Leave. And Wanner is trapped in a dream and becomes more and more frightened. She looked at the beginning, the victims were just stealing their kids. However, as people began to take advantage of the chaos to rise up and taste the sweetness of burning, killing, plundering innocent people and wealthy families, the capital was completely in chaos. The result of chaos is that more people are separated and their families are destroyed. This led to the displaced people who had to choose to follow the vicious cycle of rebellion in order to eat only a meal that could not be starved to death, and the capital was soon destroyed. The people in the capital and many aristocratic families failed to escape and became the targets of plunder. The Wangshan village is close to the capital, only 2 days away from the capital, so they naturally cannot survive. But fortunately, they can still rely on the mountains to earn money. Even if your home is robbed, you don't need to choose to escape or join the rebellion team. Just hide in the mountains with a roll of bags and you will basically not starve to death. Even if there are ferocious beasts in the deep mountains, no matter how ferocious the beasts are, they cannot withstand the number of people. They were still homeless, their eyes were red with hungry eyes. Seeing them was not only not afraid but screaming excitedly. Until you see the final winner. A man holding a hand, incredibly thin little boy walked into the golden palace and walked towards the back of the throne that represented the supreme. That man, just a back, could make people feel that his momentum was so powerful that no one could question him. This made Anwaner secretly curious about his appearance. In the dark, it seemed that she felt what she was thinking, and the man suddenly turned around and looked in her direction. That sharp and captivating glance, the handsome but cold expression that kept people from thousands of miles away made Anwaner's heart jump up quickly. At the last moment of waking up, she caught a glimpse of the little boy holding the man's hand, which was also curiously turned around. That face. After waking up, even though the sky was still dark outside, Anwaner was completely lost in sleepiness. He stood up with the quilt and sat there silently in a daze. Her mind was in a mess, and there was always a feeling that this dream would become reality. This feeling is indescribable, but it makes Anwaner feel confident. She even wondered if this was the follow-up to this book. As a book traveler, did she know the plot in advance through dreams? This is not impossible. Perhaps for others, this is just a novel. But for Anwaner, she is in it now, everything she feels is a world that is no different from reality. And I don't know if it's an illusion, but no matter how I think about it, Anwaner always feels that the last little boy she saw gave her a particularly friendly and familiar feeling. Did she have seen him somewhere and forgot about it for a while? Such doubts were not until Anwaner saw that the sky was getting bright and dressing up. In front of the bronze mirror, the original owner's face, which was not stunning, was particularly attractive, had a stunning skin and was amazingly beautiful, and she realized it. The boy's face turned out to be flawlessly rubbed the appearance of her original owner and the man. Anwaner's hands were exquisite, and the sandalwood comb with a tangled flower pattern could not be held, and it fell to the ground with a pop. Fortunately, lichens were laid on the ground, and the comb did not break when it fell. It shouldn't be. From the original owner's memory, she could remember the face of the disciple. It's obviously not the same as the man's face. What's going on? I really can't figure out the key points, but Anwaner is very clear about it. That's. After combed her hair randomly, Anwaner ran to the kitchen and opened her mouth to Xian Sulan and Xingchang who were busy, saying, "Dad, Mom, we can't leave here." "Why? Didn't we agree last night?" Xian Sulan and Xingchang were both stunned when they heard this. The two of them couldn't sleep well after returning to their room last night, and they were discussing the moving matter. Both of them had already agreed. This time they would not go anywhere, so they moved their home back to the capital. Although they were forced to leave from there, it has been so many years since then. They have accepted their lives over the years, and even the identity of an Xingchang scholar has never been revealed to the public. I have been living their little life peacefully and without trying to cause any slight storm. Logically speaking, those people shouldn't have continued to stare at them any longer. Therefore, they quietly went back to the capital and hid in the corner and would not attract attention. Want to go back to the capital, and Xingchang and Xian Sulan both thought about it carefully. After all, when going elsewhere, public security is not as good as that in the capital. And if something happens, they will still have some old friends and relatives in the capital. Even if they haven't contacted each other for many years, when they really have a desperate situation, there is still someone to ask for. If you go somewhere else. If they can't say it, they will really fall into a desperate situation where they are called daily responsive and daily responsive and daily responsive, are called daily responsive and daily responsive, are called daily responsive and daily responsive and daily responsive, are called daily responsive and daily responsive and daily responsive, are called daily responsive and daily responsive and daily responsive, are called daily responsive and daily responsive and daily responsive, are called daily responsive and daily responsive and daily responsive, are called daily response. Thinking of this, Xian Sulan and Xingchang both showed obvious disapproval of Anwaner's reluctance to leave Wangshan village. Seeing the two of them like this, Anwaner couldn't help but smile bitterly. Can it be why? Of course, staying, their family will have great vitality in the future. But how could Anwaner say this clearly? Do you want to say that she was in a nightmare? I'm afraid my parents will think she is hysterical. No mistakes, one song, one content, 1 in 6, one book, one bar, one reading. After biting his lip, Anwana racked her brains and finally forced a reason out. I think that person may not be back as you think. He gave so much money in one breath. I can't say that it means two things. But what if? Xin Sulan frowned and said, this is just you guessed. We can't afford to bet on that if. Your mother and I have already agreed to move to the capital. Looking at Anwana lovingly, and Xingqiang tempted her, didn't you always dislike this place far away from the county town and the prefecture city, and it's not lively enough? The capital is the most lively place in the world, far more than the county town and the prefecture city. 10 times more lively. After we move to the capital, we will set up a female household for you, or directly tell outsiders that you are a widow and return home. In the future, no matter whether you stay at home with your mother and me, or want to get married, it will be fine. Yes, your father grew up in the capital, and there are still some relatives and friends. When you go to the capital, you don't have to worry about our family being bullied by someone who is not familiar with the place. Xin Sulan immediately agreed. Said. This sentence suddenly blocked Anwana's intention to use the excuse that she would be bullied when moving. Her brows frowned even tighter, and she didn't know what to say for a moment, and she was unwilling to let go. Her behavior made Xingqiang and Xin Sulan frown. Xin Sulan was surprised and confused. Wana, why don't you want to leave here? End of this chapter.